Sam Viggiani is the owner of Uber Lawns and Landscape, a white glove lawn and landscape company operating out of Canandaigua, New York, serving the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes region. From humble beginnings, Uber Lawns and Landscape has now become one of the fastest growing and well-respected lawn and landscape companies in the area. Sam is also a proud board member of The Spot, a not-for-profit serving school-aged kids and their families in the Canandaigua and Victor school districts. Sam the man, thank you for being here, brother.
Sam the man, I like that. We're off to a good start already.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for having me, guys. Like I was saying before we started, it's cool being here, sitting in this room, talking to you guys, because, you know, all I do every day is listen to podcasts, and this is certainly one of them where as soon as I see a new episode pop up, I'm like, that's what I'm listening to.
Thank you, brother.
That's what I'm listening to on the ride home while I'm stuck in 490 traffic. You know?
You are a man after my heart saying that, and I appreciate you listening, and I'm glad to have you here. And I know this is the first time we're meeting in person, but you've worked with our team. You worked with Carter and Keegan, and they say nothing but great things about you guys. And I'm just excited for our partnership to flourish over the next couple of years and just dominate this local market.
I totally feel that and agree. And I like the word partnership. That's we might kind of get into that, but
so
that's big. That's big for us. So
absolutely. So take us back to the start of everything for you. You were telling me a little bit about the start of your journey back in 2020. How does entrepreneurship begin for Sam?
So I think I was always entrepreneurial. I just always, I was always that kid who would I would go out and I would shovel my neighbor's driveway for like, I don't know, $10 or something, right? Maybe mow a neighbor's lawn if I was out mowing my own lawn, my parents' lawn. Again, like I'd mow the elderly lady across the street, right? So I think I was always sort of entrepreneurial, although I didn't ever think of myself in that way or ever sort of grow up saying, oh, I want to own, I want to have a big business or any business for that matter. So anyways, the origin story for this company is as I was graduating high school in 2017, two things happened. I was going off to college the following fall. I went to Canisius in Buffalo. So I wanted some extra money. I wanted to try and make some extra money before going off to school. I was already working at the time, 2 part-time jobs that I had kind of throughout high school, my high school jobs. But I was like, I want to make some extra money, beyond that, because the money I was making from those real jobs I was kind of trying to put towards school. So that happened. And then also I got dumped at the end of high school. So awesome. This girl, she dumped me, and that at the time, which is hilarious thinking about it now, I was like so heartbroken. Right?
First time getting your heart broken?
Sorta, yeah. I mean, I had dated throughout high school, and I had different girlfriends and stuff, but I think that was the first time where I really got dumped hard. and it was at the end of school, and I was graduating, and so I said to myself, I'm like, okay, I want to make some extra money, and I also wanted to starting the company was my way of spiting her, because I was like, I'm gonna go out and make all this money, I'm gonna, screw her, So I literally, what I did was, I thought to myself, well, how am I going to make this extra money? That was the first question. And I was like, well, I've always liked mowing the lawn. So maybe I'll just go do that. And I literally went on to, Google Docs or Microsoft Word. I don't know what it was at the time. And printed off a flyer on my parents' printer, just on normal copy paper. And I lived on a dead-end street growing up, and there was 2 other dead-end streets kind of right next to it. There were 3 in a row in Canandaigua. And I just put a thing in everyone's mailbox. And I didn't really think anything of it. But to my surprise, my pleasant surprise at the time, a lot of people called me. And the original name for the company was Uber Lawns. And I I wonder if I have like the file for the original flyer. I should like frame that. I think I might somewhere. But the whole shtick was, and the reason why I called it Uber Lawns was, I already had these part-time jobs, so I wasn't really actually trying to mow a lot of lawns. I called it Uber Lawns, modeling it after the ride-sharing company, because I was sort of like, oh yeah, call me when you need me. You're going on vacation for a week, like I'll mow the lawn.
That's kind of smart. I didn't even think.
You know
about
what
that.
I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it wasn't like that, and that was like the whole shtick was like you don't have to sign up for the summer. I think a couple people did, but a lot of people just kind of called me when they needed me, intermittently throughout that summer. And thinking, now fast forwarding 7-8 years, it's like, in hindsight, it's like, yeah, who wouldn't have wanted to hire this like upstart high school kid I think I was charging people like $15 to mow the lawn. And I did a really good job too. I mean, I like really cared about it. I took it really seriously. I would always show up and do it. So it's
Push mower?
Oh yeah, baby. Took the push mower out of my parents' garage and I would walk it like around.
That's
and I had a
roots,
little like old broom that I would sweep off the sidewalk with. And then I had like a little string trimmer, all of which was my parents' for my parents' lawn.
That's as bootstrapped as you get, man.
That's how it started. Yeah. So, So anyways, that was what I did the first summer. It was cool. It went well. I went off to college for my freshman year and came back the next summer. And I thought, again, I still had some kind of real part-time jobs that was actually making real money for the summer. But I said, I'll do it again. I literally did the same thing again. I printed off some flyers, on my family's printer, and hit up the same houses. And kind of maybe expanded a little bit more from there. I didn't go very far because I was still literally walking the push mower around. Like you would see me, if you could have seen me back in the day, you would have seen this kid walking around town with like a push mower, like a little Murray Walmart push mower, a broom on the mower, and then like the string trimmer. I had
amazing.
this whole system for
That's amazing.
for how I did it. Yeah, you probably would have seen that kid and been like, "What is that kid doing? Like, why is he walking around?" Yeah, and then that second summer that I did it, I kind of started to add some more stuff because people would just ask me to do it. Can you pull some weeds? Can you trim this bush or something, right? At that point, too, I think that second summer, maybe even the first summer, I had enlisted my younger brother, Luke, because I would go off to school in, August, late August is when college starts. But people kind of still wanted their lawns mowed.
Yeah, sure.
So I was like, "Oh, Luke, I need you
someone
to
to
do this."
cover.
So I'd pay Luke, under the table to go, and he would go after high school, like after soccer practice, and go like mow the lawns. So that was like the second summer, and then, so we're at 2017, 2018, 2019, the summer of 2019, I think it would be if I'm getting my dates correct. Is again, same thing, came home from college, did the flyers and stuff. And at this point I had sort of started to make, like, there was a little bit of a name for, what was going on. And, people were referring me to other people. Right. And at that point, I think I said, okay, I don't want to do these part-time jobs anymore that I had throughout college. So I stopped that pretty early on in the summer. And I started to focus more on Uber Lawns. And I think at that time I had tacked on landscape because we had started to do some landscaping type stuff. And at that point too, I had like fully enlisted the help of my younger brother, as well as I think one of my best friends, Ben, who I was talking about, we were doing the podcast with. And again, we were walking push mowers around, like doing, and then we had started to kind of do some very, very, very basic landscaping, like, pulling some weeds, putting some mulch down, having no idea what we were doing, by the way, too. And that was kind of that. So then when I went back to school, so it would have been the summer of 2019 is when all this was happening. I went back to school in the fall of 2019. Went to school, did that, and then the winter of 2020, what happens? COVID hits, right? So I was running. I was a Division I athlete, right?
Were you really? For what?
For cross country and track. And I don't. It's really not that big of a deal.
It's a big deal, bro.
It's not a big
deal.
Humble brag.
But I bring it up because so COVID was sort of happening, and like, you know, first it was like over in China, and then it sort of moved through Europe, and then it started to, you know, pop up in the States, and, you know, everyone was kind of figuring out like what was going to go on. So ultimately what it came down to, you know, January, February, when shit started to hit the fan, right? The school was like, okay, we're going to send everyone home except the athletes.
I remember, yep.
Because the NCAA wanted to keep everybody around. So we wanted, like, so that happened. Then ultimately things got so bad that like everything just got canceled and everyone got sent home. So I got sent home, you know, around the same time as everybody else, in, you know, February-ish, I think. And as we all know, or anyone knows that was in school, whether you were in primary school or you were getting your PhD, online school just became like a total joke, right? Nobody knew, and that's not anyone's fault. No, just nobody knew like how to do, like, what is Zoom? How are we going to do these classes online?
Yep.
So for the rest of that spring semester, it was basically a wash. Everyone, you know, basically got an auto A as long as you
Showed up.
I don't know, were alive.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got sent home, and I bring all that up. So I got sent home with nothing to do, right? It's February, March-ish. I have nothing to do. And this was the first time that I was going to be home at the start of like the lawn care landscaping season, because typically I wouldn't get home until mid to late May, June from school. So you kind of miss all of April, May.
Right.
It's huge, yeah.
So for the first time, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be around for like the start of the season. And as I was going to college and, you know, getting involved in extracurriculars throughout college, I had kind of, by that point, I was a junior in 2020. By that point, I had kind of figured out what I really like to do and enjoy doing. And that was business development, business management, entrepreneurship, etc. I wasn't going to college for any of that. I was a dual major in philosophy and psychology, right? So anyways, I kind of put it all together that winter. And I sort of said, okay, I really like doing this business development, business management thing, et cetera, et cetera. I'm home with nothing to do. I am here before the start of the actual kind of lawn care landscaping season. What if I just give this little baby kind of Uber lawns and landscape thing that I have, like, what if I give it a real honest shot and actually, you know, treat it like a real business,
Yep.
do real advertising, kind of, you know, just, you know, for lack of a better term, treat it like a real business.
Right.
Because up until that point, I really wasn't. It was just kind of a summer side gig that I would do. And I did. And we had a really successful summer, spring, and I ended up going back to school for my senior year. I ended up going back to school for my senior year in the fall of 2020. But we just, like, even that first summer, we just kind of exploded. We were driving my high school vehicle that my parents got me was a PT Cruiser. So we would take all the seats out. We would take all the seats out because it was a hatchback.
Yeah.
And we'd have this whole system for like how we would like sort of manipulate all the lawnmowers, because we were still using like basic push mowers at the time.
I'm just envisioning this.
Yeah,
in my
it was
head
a whole
that-
thing.
yeah.
I mean, we beat the shit out of that PT Cruiser.
bet.
Like, we would put lawnmowers in there, and we had this whole system for how we would fit 2 in there, and a string trimmer, and a blower, and like a can of gas. The string trimmer would have to like hang out the window because it was too long, so we'd have to have it like hanging out the window. Thank God we never got pulled over. And we would drive. That's how we would mow lawns. So we would drive around the city of Canandaigua, and we would mow lawns. And when we weren't mowing lawns, we were doing, you know, basic landscaping tasks. And we would load the PT Cruiser up with bags of mulch, so much so that it was like basically dragging on the floor. Like, there was one time where we like shoveled a bunch of dirt in there. We like put a tarp inside and like it was like scraping the bottom of the road. I mean,
Do you still own that PT Cruiser?
No,
Dude,
I
that's a
wish
relic,
we did.
man.
It's a relic. I would put that in a museum or something. We don't, unfortunately.
That's amazing.
So Yeah, so that's what we did the first summer. And I enlisted my younger brother Luke and my younger brother Luke's best friend Jack under the table. That's what I'm saying. I know it's
I'm
crazy
laughing
how
'cause our
similar.
stories are so similar,
It's
yeah.
crazy how similar. So, and I was paying them under the table at the time, and because also they had nothing to do, right? They were in high school. They had nothing to do either. They were in the same boat as me, so it worked out. And
Right.
of course, they were like, "Yeah, sure, we'll take a weekly Venmo. Like,
Yeah.
we get to work outside. We're best friends. Work outside together, right?"
Yep.
So that's what we did the first summer, and we kind of exploded, right? Come back year 2, we like grew by a factor of 10. So year 1, it's like me and my 2 under the table employees and a PT Cruiser. Year 2, it's 2 trucks, a shop, 15 employees, real employees.
Sheesh.
Like, went from, I think the first year we probably did like 20 or 30,000 in revenue in 2020.
Yep.
Multiplied that by like 10, right? So, and then we just grew from there. So when I say we like have just exploded in the past 5 years, it's like 5 years ago in 2020, we were me, 2 under the table employees, both of which were in high school, one of which was my younger brother, and a PT Cruiser. And now, we are now.
Crushing it. Yep.
So that's the long-winded.
That was great, and I think that gives our audience a really like good picture, because I remember like listening to podcasts and hearing people's stories. It's always nice to hear like the start of it and like what the journey looked like through the years. So thank you for sharing that. I want to hop into. There's so many things I want to hop into, but let's kind of go back to the early days again. Let's say I'm an entrepreneur watching and I want to start a landscaping company. You talked about how you kind of drummed up those first couple clients by just putting flyers in people's mailboxes. How many flyers did you do, if you remember, and like how quickly did you grow like after doing that?
So you mean like back in 2017? Like literally when I did like the Google Docs.
Yep.
I mean, I think I gained like, I maybe put it in like 100 people's mailboxes. It was probably like 10 people called me back.
Okay.
Which at the time obviously was like plenty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is, we could go down this whole rabbit hole, like our whole advertising strategy, but a huge, any good advertising strategy, right, is multi-pronged, right?
Yep.
But a huge portion of our advertising strategy is door-to-door door hangers.
Talk about that.
To this day, our door hangers return the best ROI on any advertising we do, hands down.
Really?
Period, end of story. Why is it like that? I don't know. I haven't really, asked anybody, but I suspect that, and I guess I've heard from other people too, that do the same thing. Like, I suspect it's because postcard marketing is useless, right? What's the first thing you do when you get your mail? You throw everything out, right? That isn't important. You say important, not important, important, not important. Where does the not important pile go? Trash.
It's burning trees. Yep.
So that's useless. Social media, advertising, marketing has a lot of value, but you need brand recognition first, right? It's tough.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, right?
There's also a barrier to entry. You got to know what you're doing.
Also a barrier to entry. You have to have good content. You have to understand your advertising. It's a whole thing. So the door hangers, we shifted to door hangers, by the way. This is a side note, because we were putting stuff in people's mailboxes. Turns out that that's illegal, and we got yelled at for doing that. So we shifted to door hangers because that's not illegal.
Why is it that door hangers aren't illegal and mailboxes are?
It's like even more personal, by the way. You're going up to a homeowner's door. Like that doesn't seem right. But
yeah, it seems backwards, but because a mailbox is it's technically, and I could be wrong here, so I'm sure someone might quote me on this, but I think the mailbox is like technically like USPS, like you can't tamper with someone's mail.
Right.
Like you can't mess with someone's mail. It's a federal law.
That makes sense, yeah.
So you can't, like, their mailbox is like it's like a shrine.
It's like a sacred.
No touching the mailbox.
That's funny.
Anyways, we shifted to door hangers, which is fine because those are even better.
Right.
And the reason I think they work so well is because you're not competing for eyeballs. No one else is doing door hangers, number one. The reason nobody else does door hangers is because if you want decent door hangers that are expensive to produce, right? They're an expensive thing. And even more expensive is paying the people to go hang door hangers.
Right.
Right. It's a huge cost. So that's the first reason you're not competing with eyeballs, and that's probably why you're not competing with eyeballs. The second reason is that what do you do when something's on your door? What do you do when there's a package on your doorstep? What do you do when there's something on your door?
You go grab it.
You grab it.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell is that on my door?
Yeah.
Right? So it forces someone to at least look at it. You at least, with a door hanger, different from postcard marketing, with a door hanger, you have to at least look at it because you have to go take it off your door, right? So right away, you're not competing for eyeballs, and you're at least making someone look at it, which is way more than postcard marketing can do. And in a lot of cases, right, a lot more than social media advertising can do, or Google ads or something, right? You know, what are you doing all day on Instagram, right? You're just scrolling. So that's why it works so well from a lead generation standpoint. And then, of course, the funnel starts from there.
Dude, we
But-
do door hangers.
Well, I was going to ask this, but like my initial thought is that it seems, and you tell me your thoughts on this too, but like, do you think it's most effective in your respective industry, right? Like if we were just joking about it, but if we were to go make door hangers and hang them up and say like, we're Real 3D Media, we can make you video content, I don't think that's going to capture as much attention versus like, this is a service-based industry. It's about their home. And so tying a post or a door hanger to their home seems to make that connection better.
For us, I think it'd be more towards FSBOs, for sale by owners who are thinking of selling their house if they don't want to use an agent. Or even if they're using an agent, they see, oh, I just had a door hanger of a real estate photography company on my door. Like, I want to use, you tell the agent, hey, use these guys. So that's what I was thinking. But
Yeah, I think you guys are right. I think it's certainly industry dependent. It wouldn't make sense for you guys to go hang a bunch of door hangers on a bunch of houses and say, hey, we produce video content. It'd be like, okay, nice. Trash, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I think for people like you or your industry, it makes a lot of sense. But for home services, it makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
That's about knowing your market too, right? Like this is something that I think the best business owners are able to do is it might be unconventional, this type of advertising strategy, this marketing strategy. It's something that most people wouldn't think to do. You just said it, right? It's kind of expensive to make good ones. You have to pay employees to go out and do it. But the best leaders, the best business owners are the ones that are like, yeah, but so what? Right? Like it's going to be effective. And so we have to do it. And it's a risk, but you obviously have been confident in taking it because like you said, it's the highest, return on investment for you.
For sure. And it's, yeah. So, I mean, that would be my answer to that question. One more thing I'll say too is like, we're, as you said, we're a very premium, we're a very white glove service. That's the way. That's been a huge reason for our growth because there's a huge demand for that in this, kind of greater region. And there's really very, very few companies that are able to provide that level of service. But to that point, it's like, we tend to work with a little bit more of an affluent clientele. So when you're doing door hangers, you can pick and choose what houses you're putting door hangers on,
True.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not shotgun.
Yeah. So they have there's a lot of benefits to it. It's very hard. It's expensive. It's very hard to do, very time consuming. But, sometimes, like you said, sometimes the most unconventional ways of advertising are end up being the best ways. You just have to be willing to to put your head down and do it.
For sure.
So,
I kind of want to dive into a little bit about positioning, right? Because it's something that we talk about, during our strategy sessions each month. And we talk about how do we take the Uber brand and through our social media content, make it look white glove, make it look premium, luxurious, cinematic, right? But just from like the origins until now, as a business owner, how have you continually thought about positioning and making yourself, saying white glove is kind of like a bingo term. It's something that if people heard that, they're like, okay, and so what? Mm-hmm. How do you present that to clients when you're preparing, lawn care packages, your services, your advertising strategy? What is it that you need to make sure you're doing?
So the short answer is all the things, right?
Great.
So from our advertising to how we sound on the phone, to how quickly we pick up the phone, to, all the way through, we talk about the client journey. I talk about it a lot with my team, specifically our CRM, like the client journey from inquiry to project completion. Or if they're signing up for, a recurring service, inquiry, service start, check in with them, see how it's going. Service ends for the season. We re-up for the next season. How did we do? How did it go this past season? It's a whole thing, right? White glove being premium manifests itself across the board in everything we do. Like I said, from advertising to the finished product,
Right.
And everything in between. So, in our industry, it's very hard to differentiate yourself. It's very hard because at the end of the day, somebody with their pickup truck and a little utility trailer from Lowe's
Or their PT Cruiser.
Better yet, can mow a lawn basically as good as we can mow a lawn, right? I mean, we do some things that, if you really care about the fine details, other people are probably not doing. But 99% of people, it doesn't matter what type of home you have, really aren't going to notice that, right? So the guy with the pickup truck that charges half of what we charge, or even most of the time less, because he doesn't have any insurance, he has no overhead, et cetera. We call them weekend warriors, because they have a full-time job and then they mow some lawns on the weekend. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's plenty of lawns out there for everybody. Mm-hmm. But so the reason I'm bringing that up is because being white glove, being premium, has to manifest itself in something more than just a finished product. Because most people, at least in our industry, can do 90% as good of a job as we can do, without really any of the other stuff that we have, with no infrastructure, with no overhead, with no, the list goes on.
Right.
So that final 10%, and this is what I'm constantly, and I think, I'm constantly pissing my team off because I'm constantly like repeating myself. But that final 10% is all the little things. It's all the little things along the way that weekend warrior or whomever else is not doing.
Yep.
Right. And it's not just the weekend warriors, right? There's plenty of other companies out there that, claim to provide a good service, especially in our industry, and don't.
Yeah.
Because their finished product may or may not be good, but they're definitely not doing all these little things in the final 10%. And all the little things, it's all the little simple things that you can control. When someone calls, are we picking up the phone? If they have to leave a voicemail because we're out of the office, everyone's out of the office and there's no one to pick up the phone, are we calling them back, as soon as we get back into the office, right? Stuff like that. When someone inquires via the website, are we getting back to them no later than, next business day, right? Once someone inquires, when we schedule a time for someone to go out and meet with them, is the person that's going out to meet with them on time? Are they well dressed? Are they, we're not going out and meeting people in suits, but we're also not going out and meeting people with like ripped jeans and, a baggy t-shirt on. Yep. When that person goes out there, do they know what they're talking about? And most importantly, are they not going to hard sell you? Right? Anytime we're talking about client acquisition, is like, you'll acquire more clients by simply just purely, genuinely trying to help people than trying to sell them on something. Because people, of course, have a bullshit meter. They'll read right through you. Yep. Right? So, and then the list goes on, right? So they, after we meet with them, how long does it take us to send them a proposal, right? Can we get them a proposal within, 24, 48 hours? After they get the list goes on. After they get the proposal and they sign it, hopefully, right?
It's the fundamentals. It's the basics.
It's the fundamentals. And if it's that final 10%, the finished product is important. I always say to our teams that the most important thing that we do will always be the finished product. Because if we don't have a premium finished product that's better than everyone else's, we don't have a leg to stand on, right? We don't have a leg to stand on. So, it's, we provide a premium service and we charge a premium price to do that. Right. So if the finished product at the very end of the day is not premium or what we're saying it's going to be, we have no leg to stand on. Like everything else doesn't matter, right? So that's always the most important thing. But then the second most important thing is doing all the little things, all the fundamentals.
Yeah.
I like that word. That final 10%. That's really what sets us in our service and our client journey above everybody else's.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And before I toss it over to Cam, it's like a lot of these, and you brought up the idea of like, can we get a proposal over to someone in 24 to 48 hours? We just had a situation yesterday where a client had reached out, or a potential client. They were like, hey, like we have this great project, or, I'd like to talk to you guys about this. I was like, Kim, give me your number. I'm going to call her right away, right? We call her right away. I send her a proposal within an hour. Now, again, that's maybe just because I had the free time. It's not always realistic. But by doing that, I get a message back like, oh, you're hired. Like you work this fast, like you're hired, right? And it's that kind of attention and care that I think a lot of business owners, while they're striving for like the best product and the best service, which is, like you said, that's still the most important. That's the 90%. You lose track of the 10%, which is the client experience, how you interact and engage with people. Are you personable? Are your team members good to be around? Like that is what's actually going to win you, not just the initial client, but the long-term relationship and partnership, which is what creates a sustainable business, at least in my view. And I think with you guys, something I've always noticed, whether it's John coming on the calls to talk about ops, like you guys just have the structure built that, again, we don't work with other landscapers, but I would imagine 99% of them don't have that 10%, which even I can notice. So if I can see it from a back end, I'm sure your clients do as well.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll say too about this 10%, without kind of berating on the point, is like the 10%, the fundamentals, those are the hardest. That's the hardest part. Seriously, it is. The fundamentals, that final 10% that we're talking about, is way harder, takes way more effort, takes way more mental thought in order to produce and do it every single time, like clockwork, than mowing the lawn, the same way every time. And that's not taking anything away from our finished product, because there's a lot of effort that our teams go through. And, shout out to our teams. Like there's a lot of effort and a lot of hard work that goes into making sure our finished product is premium. But at least from the office standpoint and my standpoint as the owner, like the hardest part and the reason we are, who we are is because we take the time to do that and focus on that 10%, because the majority of the other companies out there, pretty much in any industry, don't.
Right.
And that's what's going to make the difference.
And that's why so few people are exceptional. And that's why there's the average and then there's the above average, the extraordinary. That 10%, it takes, to your point, infinite amount more of energy, more time, more effort to get there, but it's worth doing it. Once you do have that, talking about like Pareto's principle, that 80% done, working through that 20%, and it takes time chipping away at that 20% to get to like world class, and we're still on our journey of getting there too. And
we are too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like we are
definitely.
We have all these systems and processes in place now, all of which could be improved upon. And, we're always continually working on it.
Yeah.
And a year ago, 2 years ago, we had none of that.
Yeah.
Right. Think about where we're at right now. Like we only just recently started this social media content like campaign. Right. That's one of those processes that, again, is going to, it's not an internal thing for the client, but it's building that Uber brand. And that only came now, right? But you've been 7 figures, you've been very successful for many years. So it's like, it just takes time,
So I want to go back to your growth. If you're okay sharing numbers, which it sounds like you are, take us through revenue marks for the years, because I think this is really valuable for landscapers who want to grow, or any business that wants to see like how fast you can get to where you're at now.
I'll do that, and I'll also kind of give you some insight into like employee counts too.
Yeah,
that's what I want to go into.
Yeah. So we, I'll start back in 2020. So 2020, I think we did 20,000 or something. I always say give or take in those earlier years, because our accounting maybe it was good. I mean, I was
counting,
keeping pretty good track of it through Excel, but like we didn't have any QuickBooks or anything like that. So we did like 20-something thousand that first summer. Call it a season year. I had my PT Cruiser and 2 under the table employees. Year 2, I think we were somewhere in the vicinity of like 200, right? So we basically like 10x'd. And we went I think we had 2 trucks that year, and all sorts of other accompanying like equipment, right? So we started to purchase like professional grade equipment. And then we had like 15 employees. Year 2, it was like double or triple that again. So we were at like 400 or 500.
Year 3, right?
Or 3. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And we went to like 30 employees, right? It's hard because we kind of think about it in seasons, not years.
Right.
So we're actually kind of technically in like our 6th season right now, like currently. So, season 3 or 4, I forget where we're at again, like we grew again. And this time we had like at our peak, we had like 45 employees.
That's awesome, man.
And I'm kind of glad we're talking about this because this is something I do tell to other people that are starting their own business is like, at that point in time, so this is probably like 2022, 23, somewhere in there, like that, whatever those seasons would be, we were just growing out of control. Like, I'll be the first to say that. We were growing completely out of control. And the reason we had so many employees is because I was just throwing bodies at the problem. The problem being is like we had all this work to do, didn't have all the correct systems and processes in place in order to do it. And we're getting behind schedule, right? And I'm just throwing. I'm like, you have a friend, bring your friend. Like, someone who wants to come.
You get a lawnmower. You get a lawnmower.
Seriously, I mean, you get a shovel. Here's a shovel. You know how to do. You know how to dig a hole. Here you go. So, and that was 2022, 23. Those were some of the hardest. Those were the hardest years in business to date because we were growing out of control. We, for some reason, had 45 people running around, which was
crazy,
insane and not necessary. And most importantly, we were losing money out the ass.
Oh, right. I was going to say,
we were losing money out the freaking ass. So, and I mean, when I say we came pretty close to just going out of business and going bankrupt, we were pretty close. I mean, there were some pretty tough times, and it was because we were just growing out of control, and we had no systems and processes in place. We were throwing bodies at the problem. Our most expensive, if you talk to anyone, right, your most expensive line item on your budget is your labor, right? It doesn't really matter what industry you're in, and yeah, we were just bleeding money. I mean, we were bleeding money. And again, at that point in time, I really didn't have the proper accounting. So I didn't even really know. It was kind of obvious. Like, you kind of know that you're bleeding money because you just don't have any money left in the bank account. But I didn't know where, why, how. So at that point, after 2023, or actually kind of beginning to middle of 2023, that season. So I don't know, what is that? Like our 4th season? Doesn't really matter, but the summer of 2023 is when things were just getting out of control and we were, spiraling downwards. And I realized, I'm like, okay, I need to like pump the brakes. Like, so we need to like reset, pump the brakes. Cause we are also at the same time, we were losing sight of who we were, right? The quality's starting to go down. The customer service is going down. Or we don't even call our clients, not customers, because we talk about a relationship. You sell a customer something and it's see ya. You build a long-term relationship with a client.
Love that.
So, right. So our client relation, it was falling apart. So got an accountant, best thing I ever did. Judy Van Heusen, Lakewind CFO. I love that woman. She's like my superhero, knight in shining armor. She fixed the entire thing. Wow. I mean, and when I say fix the entire thing, I mean from an accounting standpoint, and gave me the tools and the knowledge to know where I needed to go fix things from an operations standpoint, from a cost standpoint, et cetera. And she's been nothing but a blessing ever since. And she's, I still meet with her once a month and I'm texting her all the time. About random QuickBooks things, because QuickBooks can be a pain in the ass sometimes. But yeah. So we kind of hit a hard pause, not on work. I mean, things things were happening. The company was still moving along, but from a growth standpoint, we kind of hit like a hard, like, okay, we need to, whoa.
And this was end of 2023.
This is kind of like summer of 2023.
Okay.
And then kind of going into 2024, and it was sort of like, okay, 2023, figured out all the problems and how to fix them.
Yeah.
Then my job became, okay, stay alive until 2024.
Yeah.
Right? So I could implement all of the fixes, because in this, my business in this industry, it's not like an overnight thing. Like you can't just snap your fingers and say, okay, we implemented all these fixes. It's kind of, it'd be different for like manufacturing, right? If the line is down on manufacturing, you go in and you find the problem and you tighten the bolt, right? And it's fixed, right? With this, it's not like that. So obviously, long story short, we did stay alive until 2024, and we fixed all of the problems, right? But at the same time, still kind of like took it easy on growth, right? Because we're like, okay, let's build the foundation before we really start to put pedal to the metal again.
So a lot of people go? Like how many people did you like?
So a lot of those people were like literally seasonal
Okay.
guys, like high school, college guys, friends of other people that had been working at the company. Because again, I literally was like, do you have a friend?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a friend? How many friends do you have? Do they want a job? Do they have a job? Do they want an extra job?
Yeah,
do they want some extra money? That's what we were doing. I mean, when I say throwing bodies at the problem, I mean throwing bodies.
So you weren't even interviewing or anything? You were just like...
we would like interview and say like...
You've got a pulse. Come on.
Yeah, we would interview, like, but if they were coming in and they were already like a friend of someone that was working
you had...
there,
Gotcha.
And for the most part too, like all those guys, all those, kids, guys, like they're all young guys, like they were all great. I mean, there was nothing wrong with them, right? It wasn't them. It wasn't the fact that they weren't trying to work hard or anything like that, or trying to learn. And, because most of these people that we're hiring have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just the pure overhead and labor costs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyways, figured out all the problems in 2023, fixed all the problems in 2024, sort of walked in 2024.
Yeah.
Still grew a lot, but walked in 2024 so we could then run in 2025.
Hell yeah.
And that's kind of now.
So
that's now what we're doing.
Was 2024 when you hit that 7-figure mark?
Yeah. So, and it's also our first profitable year.
Nice.
So
Congrats.
so that's the other thing. I mean, maybe back like in the early days when we had like no overhead or anything, we probably made money. But yeah, we lost like, and I don't mind saying this either, like in 2022, 23, 2022, we probably lost somewhere between like 50, 100,000. 23, it was like between 100 and 150. We were like, and again, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I like to say it's like the greatest turnaround in
Greatest comeback, baby.
Greatest comeback in business history. On the outside, no one ever really knew what was going on, right?
Yeah.
We were able to kind of stay pretty even keel, but
Well, that's a great point. I want to touch on that because I think oftentimes from the outside looking in on businesses, you can think that, oh man, they're crushing it. They're just absolutely dominating. But what you don't see is behind the curtain. And I'll be vulnerable for a second too. We've been through some financial struggles lately as well. And thankfully we're on the other side of it now and we're starting to really, really grow a lot again. But those are the moments that people don't see. And those are the moments that I'm so glad you brought it up in this show because hence the name, Real Power. We want to be real. We want to be authentic to what actually happens to you as an entrepreneur on your journey. It's up and down, up and down. This is how it goes. And the mentality and the person that you become through that process that's really the reward, in my opinion.
for sure. And entrepreneurship is really, really high highs and really, really, really low lows.
Yes, it is.
And as a business owner, owning like a larger company now, like I can have those really high highs and really low lows all in one day, in 1 8-hour day.
Oh my gosh, that was
seriously.
literally
And I'm
yesterday.
sure you guys understand that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And, as a business owner, as a leader, like you have to be able to, you got to say like for yourself, number one, for your clients, or I should say for yourself, number one, team members, number two, and clients, number three. You got to kind of stay pretty even keel. And it's a lot. It's hard. I mean, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, it's really hard. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of weight on your shoulders. It's a lot of staying as even keel as you can be, even when you're in like the lowest of lows, right? Like, I'll use again 2023. Like 2023, I didn't think we were like. I mean, I thought, like, I always believed, but I'm like, we're not. Like, we're going bankrupt, right? And that just destroyed me, like, mentally. Like, I just was so upset about that, right? Like, I mean, I just was like, oh my, I mean, like, this is terrible. I'm such a failure. Like, also, how am I going to pay all this money back? Like, right? Like, but the whole time, I mean, no one would have ever known. Like, nobody would have ever, no one that really worked at the company would have ever known. Only the people that were like closest to me really like knew that. Yeah. And even that, even then too, I'm not sure I even was really telling people. So it's hard. I mean, it's hard and it's, yeah, I mean, I won't kind of keep going down that.
No,
that
dude,
point, but
this is important, right? Because I think we have these podcasts and it's the split between talking about the business journey, which we did. Sometimes it's the mindset stuff, which I'm going to get into in a second, but a big thing that we realized, he talked about, our financial struggles and whatnot going through, the start of the year, the end of last year, is we had to take a step back and go, we have an amazing brand, but not an amazing business. And there's a big difference. I think people get confused.
I love that, by the way, because I could say the same about us.
100%.
Like, when we were at that point.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, it's just people get it confused because, again, the brand is the outside perspective for the most part. Somewhat with like your team members that aren't really clued in on stuff like how is the culture, the brand and stuff. But, we have 25,000 followers and everybody in Rochester, I say that jokingly, knows who we are, all the real estate agents. But it's like,
for sure, though,
we're about to go under. Like, we're losing money month after month. Like, what is going on? And it's because, oh shit, we realized we didn't have a lot of the systems in play and the financial oversight and all this stuff to make sure that we were doing well. And once we took a step back and realized, okay, we got to build the business up, put the branding on hold for a second. Once that's solidified, we talked about foundations earlier. Now we can go back to building the brand, which is amazing. And that's the fun stuff, by the way.
Yes,
building the brand is way better than like building up the core foundations of the business.
Well, yeah. And to your point, Carter, like, I think that's why, and I'll take full accountability here, I am obsessed with brand. Like, that is my heart and soul. That's my superpower. You can see it. Our logo's everywhere. The business, I'm good at the business, but clearly there were some things that were missing. There were some, and honestly, it was a lot of hiring, over-hiring, having too much overhead, going into slower season and not realizing, I mean, our revenue gets cut by 50% come November and December. So it was just a slow death, really, that we were heading towards. And at the same time, I was struggling with some of the toughest health issues that I've ever faced in my life. So
we should talk about that, by the way.
Yeah, we will. So, I mean, the world was just falling apart, like falling apart. And we rallied together and we got to the other side of it. And I don't want to, fingers crossed that things stay well, but you will get to the other side. You have to have faith. And I don't bring up faith a lot, but you have to have faith in your team. You have to have faith in yourself, and you have to have faith that like you can get out of the storm. So
faith in yourself, for sure. I mean, because it comes down to, at the end of the day, it does come down to you as the owner, the leader, right? It comes down to you and the decisions that you're making. And yeah, I mean, just believing in yourself, believing that you can figure it out. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to take time. But if you're in a situation like that, or you're just building a business in general and things are just going really well, and all the more power to anyone else, to anyone that's doing that, let me know some of your secret sauce. Like, you still have to believe in yourself. And every day it's like, okay, like, we have all these problems, like, okay, but is it, they're not major problems. Like, okay, so we just, one day at a time, let's tackle things one day at a time, one topic, one issue at a time, and it'll be okay. I've always looked up to my dad. He's run a large, or a portion of a large state agency for a long time. And, I look up to him a lot, and we are similar spirits, where our minds kind of work in similar ways. And one thing that he always told me is that I'd be so stressed out. I wouldn't be sleeping. Like I'd be up at all hours of the night. Right. And he'd be like, Sam, at the end of the day, like, it's going to work out because you're going to make sure it works out. And because that's the only option. And that has always stuck with me. I love you, Dad, by the way. Like,
Shout out to you, Dad.
shout out to you, Dad. But like, seriously, I mean, he said that to me, and that has always stuck with me. Is like, at the end of the day, Sam, it's going to work out because you're going to make sure it works out because you personally are not going to fail. You're not going to let yourself fail. Right. Mm-hmm. So it'll be okay. Like, don't stress about it. Like, don't think that it's not going to work out because there is no other option. There is no other option other than it working out because you're going to make it work out.
Love that.
And like, that has just always stuck with me because I'm like, because first of all, it's correct. And second of all, it's just like, yeah, like, you're right. It is going to work out. Like, I am going to figure it out. I am going to, get through, like, weather this storm, whatever that may be. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to mention that because I think that is one thing that has been said to me in my short 26 years of life. Like,
yeah,
that I've always thought was like really impactful. And I think it kind of plays into what we were sort of just talking about. So
I love it.
For sure.
I love
and
it.
also, I mean, just again, we can hammer on this forever, and it kind of goes into the greater discussion of the mindset stuff that I want to talk about. But what I've had to adopt in this season of just kind of getting out of this season of difficulty and hardship and change is like, failure is such a weird word. You know what I mean? I always had this fear that like, we're going to fail, like we're going to fall, we're going to go under, or we're going to have to fire everybody. But it's like, it's not really a failure so much as it's a potential reset, right? So even like you looking back at 22, 23, when you had 45 employees, you could have viewed like, we're losing money. This is a complete failure. But realistically, how do you get out of something like that? It's you reset, right? You said, okay, these people have to go. We have to make this operational shift, all those different things. And when I started viewing, and I'm still getting better at it, by the way, I'm very young in this role. When I started viewing failures, quote unquote, through difficult times as reset periods, it really helps orient like, it's not a reflection of me. It's just what needs to get done in order to get
not
get
thinking
moving.
about it as a failure.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think about those years when things were really tough as a failure.
Right.
I think about those as foundation years. Like, those were building years. Those were the years that we really built a business, right? And didn't just have a fancy brand, right? So I'm thankful for those years. Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice to avoid that, but like,
in hindsight,
like, it's fine. Like, everybody goes through it, and now we're way better off because of it.
Yeah, right on, brother.
So
someone, I forgot which guest it was, but someone said they don't even refer to it as failure. They call it learning points.
yeah,
And I got to remember.
and I love that, and I agree with that. Like, it's correct because I think using the term failure is also that's probably very self-limiting.
Yeah, definitely.
And full transparency, I probably say that all the time, failure. But like,
Yeah.
it's very when you think about it and when you're talking about it in this sort of setting, you're like, oh yeah, like it is. That's a very self-limiting term.
Yeah. So, as Carter already said, we like to kind of divide the show up into practical, business, tactical stuff, and then more into mindset. And I know he loves getting into the mindset, and so do I. But talk about the actual things you do in your life. You talk about staying even-keeled. You talk about having to stay calm and cool and collected as the leader, as the owner of the business. What things do you do, daily habits, routines, in your life to really practice that and build that in your life?
So there are some things that I do that help, but what we should talk about first is, as an avid listener of the pod, like, I know about, or know on a surface level about your health struggles.
Oh, yeah.
And I have similar struggles. So, and I think it's important to talk about it because that has shaped who I am as a person and is the reason why I'm allowed to say even keel most of the time and not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
So when I was in middle school in 8th grade, I got really sick And I'm going to give you like the super condensed version of this. Got really sick. Turns out I got diagnosed with a super rare chronic kidney disease. Like really rare, like one of the most rare kidney diseases out there. I'm sure there's always something rarer, right? But it's rare.
Yeah.
And the problem with having a rare disease is that there's not a lot of research into it, which means that there's really not a lot of cures or things that can help you. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that someone who has cancer has it easier or better than me. I don't think about that.
Yeah.
I don't think like that at all, but I bring cancer up because it's like cancer is not rare, right? So there's it's a very researched disease. It's my disease is not, I'm not in that boat. So, long story short, as a kid, as an 8th grader, really, my life was just totally upended. I mean, up until that point, I was super healthy, really athletic, right? Really, I got pulled up. It was like I was like the proudest ever kid. I got pulled up onto the varsity track team in 8th grade. So I was just like, I thought I was like the best thing. Seriously. I mean, like I was floating on, and it's interesting how the universe works and how things happen, because at like one of my highest highs at that point in my life, right? I'm only in 8th grade, but one of my highest highs at that point in life was like, had just gotten onto the varsity track team. I was actually doing really well.
Yeah.
Right. Really kind of competing and hitting above my own weight, for lack of a better term. And then everything gets ripped away from me. My health goes down into the toilet. My life went from, being this, happy-go-lucky kid, like just made the varsity track team in 8th grade. Everything's going great, to doctor's visits, basically lived in the hospital for like that first kind of year to 2 years after getting diagnosed, kind of the rest of 8th grade through 9th grade. Just ripped away from me. Like my whole life just ripped away. And, long story short, was in the hospital a lot, nothing was really working. And my health was continuing to spiral towards, my kidneys were failing. So eventually I would have needed probably like a double kidney transplant, which has all sorts of other problems and complications. And then about a year after getting diagnosed, my nephrologist at the time, my kidney doctor, found this research study of this girl who was like 13 in Germany, who happened to have the same disease as me. And they did a study on her. It was like a clinical trial, sort of, not really actually, for all sorts of kind of complicated reasons why, which I won't get into, but like they used this non-cancer chemotherapy on her for her disease, same one I had.
What's the name of the disease, by the way?
It's called the acronym is MPGN1.
Okay.
The long form is membranoproliferative glomerulonephritis type 1.
Sheesh.
So
Okay.
we stick with MPGN.
Gotcha. Yep.
And because of certain things, again, and it also starts to get above my head at this point, but because of certain reasons, they thought that this non-cancer chemotherapy drug that was designed for a completely different disease would work for her in her disease, the same one I have. And it did. It started to show some like initial signs of like working. And at this point, my case, I'm like spiraling out of control and nothing is working. I mean, I'm going downhill real quick towards having to have my, in 9th grade or 8th grade,
Yeah.
have my, double kidney transplant, which again, really not good. That comes with all sorts of other potential problems, and you really don't want to get to that point. So my doctor was like, you guys want to try this? Like what, and my parents and I were like, sure,
We'll do anything.
whatever, I guess, and almost immediately it worked, started to work. And very quickly, in the grand scheme of things, very quickly I started to improve. And long story short is that non-cancer chemotherapy drug, for a completely separate disease, has allowed me probably after about a year or so of being on it, It's an intravenous, like it's literally it's chemo, so it's intravenous. And that allowed me to basically get to a point by the time I was in kind of middle high school, sophomore, junior year, to basically be as if I was in remission, but not actually. So like basically be as close to remission as possible without really being in remission. The reason that you can't really be in full remission is because it's a chronic disease and it's an autoimmune disease. So you can't really, my immune system is just doing things that it shouldn't be doing. And, you know, you can't turn your immune system off, right? Or you shouldn't. So that's why you can't get to full. Ever since that point, I've been on the same, you know, in addition to all sorts of other medications that I got to take every day, but I've been on the same non-cancer chemotherapy. I used to get it back in the day. I used to go every other week. Now I go every other month. And that's allowed me to live a totally normal life. Still have my two original kidneys going strong. So that's crazy. That's a crazy story. And the reason I bring it up is because going through that as a kid, and I wanted to like make sure we talked about this because I know like you've had like similar stuff going on, and because I get it truly, like I understand where you're at or where you've been. Like going through that as a kid changes you. It changes you going through that as an adult.
Especially
I know,
in
like
eighth
the
grade,
last
dude.
podcast you had, Mark.
Mark Iacona.
Iacona. Like he was talking about how he was paralyzed or he almost was paralyzed.
He told us
right?
off camera, dude. It was a crazy story.
Crazy story, right? And I only heard what was on the podcast. But like that changes you as a person.
Yep.
But especially changes you and sculpts you when it happens to you as a kid.
Right.
So that happened to me as a kid, and that really caused me to grow up really quickly, right? You know, really quickly, in like the blink of an eye, I had to go from being a kid to being an adult and dealing with adult problems, right?
Yeah.
So, and the whole time, I had no choice but to like go for the ride and try and stay right as even keel, because everything's out of your control.
What is the alternative? Yeah.
There is no alternative. Everything's out of your control. There's nothing you can do. You don't understand what's going on. Your life sucks. All your friends, you know, again, I'm a young kid, so all my friends are doing these things. They're enjoying themselves. They're, you know, this, that, and the other. And here I am in the hospital. So that changes you as a person, and that really sculpts you as a person. And that kind of forced me to, at the time, grow up really quick. You know, I kind of really, the rest of my childhood, out the door. Like that's kind of gone. And I don't have an issue with that, but grow up really quick and really learn how to deal with problems and deal with conflict and deal with like things that are out of your control really quick.
Yeah.
And kind of learn that when something's out of your control, the worst thing that you can do is just break down or just freak out or just whatever, right? It also taught me to be really grateful and, you know, not really sweat the small stuff, right? So bringing it kind of full circle, mindset, that's where I get a lot of my mindset from. That's what has kind of shaped me as a person, what allows me to be pretty even keel, what really, you know, that another thing that going through that and still going through it every day, right? I live with it every day still, like not sweating the small stuff and understanding, or at least in my case, especially back then, because I still wanted to be involved in sports, I had to work twice as hard than everybody else, right? Because of my health. So in order to still compete at the level that I wanted to compete at, I had to work twice as hard. I would go to track practice, get home, eat something, go to the Y, be at the Y until they kicked me out, lifting, running, right? So that taught me the fact that you just have to really work hard, and like no one is gonna, you know, people want to help you and people care about you, but at the end of the day, you are you, and you have to drive yourself. Like you have to deal with this problem yourself, right? Et cetera. You know, the list goes on. So that going through that experience as a kid shaped me and has kind of allowed me to have the mindset that I have today. And and I can pause there, or I could start to talk about the things that I like to do on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, that. Thank you, first of all, for sharing that. That you struck right into my soul. Every word that you just said, and I can feel that you know what I'm going through, and I know what you went through, and maybe going through it at such a young age can be a little bit of a different story, because you're in middle of high school, like your mind is still developing. You're trying to go through all these other problems on top of trying to stay alive. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's so. The other thing too is it teaches you how fragile life is, and it serves as a wake-up call. At least it is for me. And I don't want to make my health issues sound like it's life-threatening. For those who don't know, I'm going through a lot of gut issues. I have it's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So I have too much bacteria in my gut, causing all kinds of diarrhea, nausea, the whole nine. And I've been suffering through it for over a year. Slowly getting better now, on the right supplement protocol. But people talk about there always being like hard things being a blessing in disguise. And I truly never used to subscribe to that mentality. I'm like, fuck that. Like, I don't want to go through this. Starting to come out on the other end of it, I see, like, my eyes are open. I approach conversations differently. I see the world differently. I've always been a pretty calm, collected person according to the people around me, but now it's like, I don't give a fuck about any minor issue. What just happened? Oh, we just had a drone stolen yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
On top of the camera and the microwave?
on top of the camera.
Yes. When it rains,
Tough
it
week
pours,
for Real
dude.
3D.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours.
Tough week.
Yeah, tough week for Real 3D.
I got upset for a second, and Carter was like, "Fucking raging, man." And I'm
I
just
was
like,
pissed, dude.
"It's okay, it's okay."
pretty upset, too.
And within 60 seconds, I'm like, I just went through the darkest, depressing time of my life. We're gonna go buy another $800 drone. It's gonna be fine.
Right.
So, for anyone going through a tough time, it doesn't have to be a severe health issue. It can just be anything in life. There is no other alternative other than taking the perspective of, this is going to change me as a human being. This is going to make me better, even if you don't see that for an extended period of time.
And it's like, honestly, at this point in my life, and I'm not saying this now because things are okay now, relatively okay. Like I still go get chemo every other month. Like
It's crazy.
I take like 10 different medications every morning, right, when I wake up. But I'm not saying it now because things are, relatively stable now. I've been saying it for a while. Like, I really wouldn't change it. Like, I really wouldn't change who I am. Wish I didn't have this disease, like, and wish I had not gone through what I've gone through. Because now, and for a little while now, like, I recognize that, like, there's a lot of benefit that I've gained from having this perspective on life and going through what I've, like, gone through in life. Like, it's afforded me a lot of, like, cool things, like, from perspective to, for all the way up to, I was a Make-A-Wish kid. So, like, I got to go to Rio when the Olympics were in Rio.
That's insane.
And watch some of the Olympics there. Yeah, that was like, I would have never been able to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like the cool, flashy stuff that I wouldn't have been afforded. But the friendships, the being able to experience true, like, care and compassion from, like, nurses and doctors, and like I really wouldn't change it. Like, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't, because it's made me who I am.
Yes.
Like, it's made me who I am.
Yep.
And it's afforded me a lot of amazing things, most of which, and most importantly, perspective, the ability to stay kind of even keel and not sweat the small stuff, and the ability to have sort of just experience and have a respect for the people that work in medicine. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't experience true care until there's like a nurse like helping you out of bed in the
Right.
hospital, right? Someone you don't know, someone that doesn't know you, but they're just coming in because they care about you and like that's what they want to do with their life. Like
Yeah.
that is, and I've made, you know, I have some lasting friendships with like people that I've met, like nurses, or, you know, there's a child life specialist, which is like a sort of a whole thing. But, you know, I'm good friends with those people now. Like I would have never met those people. I would have never had the experiences and relationships that I would have had.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen, brother.
So it's
And there's
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say there's and I'm not saying this to like evangelize or anything, but there's a really great Bible verse that I've always gone back to, and it's this sort of sequence that like suffering produces endurance, endurance produces character, character produces hope, right?
I had that written on my running shoes all throughout college.
I love that. I love that. And I think I'm missing one in there, something about perseverance or something, but
Yeah.
that verse alone, and I haven't been through these struggles, but I've obviously, you know, we're on the leadership team together, and me and Cam are just like family friends, Keegan, et cetera. And just hearing this, that hope aspect, whenever you're going through these sort of small things like the drone thing, right? It's such an easy thing for you guys to kind of bounce back to, like, I've produced so much character over this period of hardship that for me, something like that, like I just have hope and I have faith that it's going to kind of work itself out. It'll be fine. Whereas again, that's something that I don't have that personal experience, but I'm learning to learn your guys' perspectives. And it's funny because most guests that we have on tend to have a similar, maybe not as in-depth health story, but something to learn from. And it really does help you cultivate a mindset of like
I
hope.
have noticed that.
Yeah.
I have noticed, you know, like listening to other podcasts and listening to this podcast is like you typically, like people in our position, people who are running a business typically have gone through something.
Yeah.
Like some more extreme than others, but typically there's something in someone's core that's really driving them and is what's really like allowed them to be successful. And in my case, it's my disease and, you know, the type of person that's turned me into, you know, and you guys are in different, like,
Yeah.
I've always found that interesting.
Yeah.
I've
Noticed that
found
too.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great point, Carter. Just kind of seeing through the lens of other people and, you know, God forbid, hopefully nothing severe ever happens to your health, but like just seeing it from the outside and almost like adopting that perspective, I think is what you were getting at there.
Yeah, 100%. And because like at the end of the day, it's also, and neither of you guys would say this, right? But going through like a severe health scare like that is not the only way to cultivate, you know, perseverance or even killedness, but
Not at all.
being
Yeah.
able to learn from those perspectives, right? To be like, that's really what I do here a lot of times when I'm listening to your guys' health stories. It's being a student of the mindset that you guys have cultivated. That's still really important.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get it any other way.
All right. It is 12:33. You said 12:45 you have a call?
Roughly.
Okay.
No, it's me. Well, whatever. Yes.
And we have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to hit that clock one more time, and then we're going to wrap up, okay?
Let's dove into
Dude,
the
I could
mindset
talk
stuff.
like you gotta understand something about me. Like talking business, talking like kind of this type of stuff is like literally my favorite thing to do. Yeah, like having deep conversations and talk mostly about. I really like to talk business, so like I could talk business forever. But even talking about like philosophy, psychology, ethics, like it's nothing. Like literally, this is my favorite thing to do on planet Earth. I like cigars, right? So you know, for better or for worse,
I feel like I'll get into cigars later. I had one at my wedding, and that's all I've smoked in my
Hey,
life.
listen, dude, come down to my office.
Okay.
We could do this for 3 hours and smoke a cigar.
Sounds great.
But like literally my favorite thing to do on planet Earth is sit around with friends around a fire, not around a fire, it doesn't matter. Around a table, smoke some cigars and just chop it up.
It's life, man.
Like I
love it.
Love that. Like I feed off that energy. And some of like the greatest like business ideas or like kind of aha moments have come out of that, right?
Yeah.
Like doing that type of thing. That's a side note, but
Let's wrap up with this. I know you're still young. You're 26 years old, but from what you've shared today, it sounds like you you're wise beyond your years. You have a lot of life experience. And to me, age is just a number, really. I think the ideal people, or at least from what I'm hearing from people listening to this show, this podcast, are the people in their younger, early 20s, especially wanting to start some sort of business, become an entrepreneur. If you could leave our audience with one piece of advice or wisdom as they begin their journey, what would that be?
One thing I would say, and I would reiterate what we've already said. You can't sweat the small stuff, or else it'll eat you alive, and you'll just become a shell of yourself. And I've been there. If you believe, and I'll repeat this too, if you believe in yourself, which you should, if you're starting your own business or doing whatever, like, or even doing something like, that's self-guided, like being like a real estate agent or something, right?
Yep.
Like, if you're doing that, you should be very confident in yourself. Not overly confident, not to the point where you're a jerk to others, right? And if you are that confident in yourself, because you should be, you should really remember that, like what I said before, like, it's at the end of the day, it's going to work out. You might be in your lowest of lows, and at the end of the day, it's going to work out, because that's the only option. Seriously. Like, that's the only option. Because the other option is failure, is total failure. Like, shut the doors, we're out of here. Like, no more business. So unless we're going there, which we don't want to go to, the only other option is that it's going to work out. And it may not work out in the way you think it's going to work out. Yeah. Most of the time it doesn't.
Yep.
Right? But it's going to work out. So reminding yourself of that, I think, is extremely important. So, I'd say, like, don't sweat the small stuff. Be confident in yourself and your ability. Remind yourself of that they're really, at the end of the day, in the lowest of lows, it's going to work out, because there really is no other option other than for it to work out. And I think the final thing I would say is just, treat others the way you want to be treated. Right? Like, I wear a crucifix around my neck, and I grew up in the church, and I'm not the most religious person right now, but I wear this every day. Not because I don't go to church every Sunday, and I don't, I'm not the most religious person right now, but I wear it around my neck every day because it reminds me of that. Is like the golden rule, not to sound dumb, but it's like, what would Jesus do? But outside of that, it's more like, to me, what would Jesus do really translate towards, like, the golden rule on treating others the way you want to be treated. And that's why I wear this around my neck every day.
Right.
And if you do that, if you treat others the way you want to be treated, whether it's customers, clients, or your team, it's going to be really hard for you to fail. You're going to have really high highs and you're going to have really low lows. I can probably almost promise you that, right? But at the end of the day, you'll keep on keeping on, and you'll be okay. Yeah. And I think the people that don't treat others the way they want to be treated, and really, everyone says treat others, treat everybody the way you want to be treated, right? Oh, okay. Like, but really, like, when you're talking to someone on the phone and someone's really upset, it's like, really think, like, okay, how am I going to respond to this person? Am I going to go, like, back at him? Am I going to try and, like, really, like, get into an argument? Or am I going to try and at least put myself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from, right? And, sometimes at the end of the day, people are just going to be people, and you can't, sometimes it's just not going to work out, and someone's going to just be upset with you for no reason, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. It happens to me all the time. But yeah, as long as you're really, truly treating others the way you want to be treated, really striving for that, you're not always going to hit the mark, right? You're not always going to, I'm a fallible person. Like, I mess up all the time. But as long as you're striving for that and truly striving for that, not sweating the small stuff, and, really trusting yourself and understanding that at the end of the day, it's going to work out because there's no other freaking option. Yeah. Then I think you're going to be pretty all right. You'll be all right.
I love that. And Cam, I know we're wrapping up here, but I couldn't get out of my head when you said it. That idea, right? The what would Jesus do or whatever, but just that idea of sacrifice, right? And putting yourself in other people's shoes, because in business, as an owner, as a team member, a leader, it's very easy to be reactive. Someone calls you on the phone, they have a terrible attitude. I just checked my email. We got like a 6-page revision request on a video. Like, to just be like, this person's an effing idiot, like a moron, and then to react in that way, as opposed to, okay, if I had something that I didn't like, write a video that had sent to me and I wanted to send some revision requests, like, how would I want to be kind of communicated back with? Or if team members are frustrated, how, Mason gets the drone stolen, is it better for me to yell at him and get pissed at him? Or if I was in that situation, how would I want Cam or somebody else to respond to me? So again, those Jesus embodying principles, amazing, but just that idea of being a leader that leads through example is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes back from a client standpoint too. It goes back to like truly trying to help people.
Right.
So the client that sent the 6-page long revision request or whatever, like they don't know. They have no idea. Like they don't know about what goes into that or why what they're asking for may or may not really be, that valid or necessary, right? They're just doing what they just are doing what they're doing, right? They're just trying to produce the best product in their eyes.
100%.
And we go through that all the time in our business. We have some pretty wonky requests that come through on a day-to-day basis that you're like talking to someone or you read an email and you're like, okay, But if you go back to the idea of like, treating everybody the way you want to be treated, or also like truly trying to help people, right? We were talking about that from a sales standpoint. It's like, okay, yes, this person just kind of came through with this wonky request that is a little ridiculous, but aren't we trying to help them? Like, isn't that where we started when we started this, right? I talked about the client journey. When we started that, isn't that where we started?
Right. Not to just get a project out.
So just because we have this little hiccup or annoyance doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to try and strive for that.
Yeah.
So,
all right, real quick.
And I could go on and on, but
real quick, I want to end with this because I got to piss my pants in a second. But, goals for the future.
Should leave that in.
No, that's staying in for sure. Where are you headed, Sam, and where is Uber Lawns and Landscape headed, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years? How big you want to get? Where do you guys want to grow to give us your vision?
I want to continue to grow at the cadence we're growing at, which is obviously pretty quick. I think there's a huge demand for the level of service we provide. And I think the more and more that we can because half of our battle too is educating people on why they need that higher level of service. Some people kind of need it and they don't really know it. But if we can get people there, and we certainly do, and there are certainly plenty of people that are already there, there's a huge demand for that in like the kind of greater Rochester, Finger Lakes region that we do business in. So I'd certainly like to continue to grow at the cadence we're growing sustainably.
Yes.
Right. But continue to grow and continue to kind of kick some ass and, with all due respect, kind of take some business away from some of these companies that have been around for 30, 40 years and really just don't take care of people. Right. And people don't even know it. They don't really know it that they're not really being taken care of until you kind of show them that there's a better alternative. So that's where we're going. And, I'm interested in many, many, many other things from a business standpoint, many things. So this certainly won't be the first business I start and hopefully scale. But for the time being, Uber Lawns and Landscape all the way, and we'll see. We'll do a reassessment when I'm your age.
Yes,
when I hit the big 3-0, we'll kind of do like a reassessment and see where we're at.
There will certainly be a part 2, and I look forward to watching you grow. And I can tell that you're a special human being, and I'm really, really glad that number one, we connected and you reached out to us, and we're just the partnership we're building. But just having you on the show you are the ideal person, sharing your journey, being vulnerable, showing the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. So it's been an honor and a pleasure having you, Sam. And
appreciate it.
I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And that is all I got to say. We will see you in the next episode. Peace.